Okay, I'll just welcome all of you guys by saying good morning, sawadee krap, ni hao, all those things. Welcome to everyone. Nice to see you guys this morning. Today is our group learning program where we start with meditation in order to help you guys to do meditation and learn a bit about meditation. And then on Wednesdays, I just open up to any and all questions that you guys have. I'll probably give you guys a little bit of taste of the teachings of the Buddha after our meditation, but mainly Wednesdays is just for open questions from the community, from anybody who has questions about anything you'd like to ask questions about. On Sundays in this program, we go chapter by chapter in this book titled Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And what we're doing is we're helping you guys to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment, understanding this path that the Buddha shared that will allow you to get to the point where your mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. This is a permanent mental state that you can attain in this life, where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. And this is accomplished through training of the mind. And that's why we start with meditation, but you need much more than just meditation in order to be able to get to enlightenment. There's other teachings that you would need. So that's why we spend time at different times teaching you guys about the teachings. And then the teachings that the Buddha shares, there's nothing there that you should believe. You should never believe the Buddha's teachings. You're learning them, examining them, and investigating them. You're then reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're integrating them into your life through a daily practice of training your mind. You're practicing his teachings. And this is what's going to uproot the causes and conditions that are producing the discontent mind. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. The way that we start with our meditation is we start with some chanting. If you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. We have these chants on a laminated sheet over there on the table. You're welcome to help yourself and get a sheet over there. You'll see the Pali language. This is what we're chanting in. This is a historical language that the teachings of the Buddha are in, and it has the English translations on there as well. Yeah, you guys are welcome to help yourself get as many as you like. And for those of you online, you'll find this chanting sheet on our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com, and from there you can click on free books, and down towards the bottom you'll see the chanting sheet where this is the same printout that we have here at the temple. So as you guys are getting these chants, and you might decide to look at the English translations, what you're going to notice is a lot of gratitude and appreciation and respect for the Buddha in these actual chants. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me and show me all this respect and show me all this gratitude and appreciation. A Buddha would have eliminated their ego, just like an average enlightened being would have eliminated their ego. A Buddha would have surely eliminated their ego. So they don't walk around with arrogance and pride and boastfulness and putting themselves up above other people. So the Buddha wouldn't have created these chants himself. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all the other discontent feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is a permanent mental state, and this individual didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of gratitude and respect for that person too. So I suspect his students created these either during his life or after his death. During his lifetime, they did do chanting, but the reason why is because they used it in order to commit the teachings to memory. There isn't anything mystical or magical about these chants. There aren't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. They're not prayer or anything like that. They literally use chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha in order to commit the teachings to memory. That's the only reason. They just recited his teachings because they didn't write things down during his lifetime. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world, so they just used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So as you're chanting these, there isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship or prayer. What it does is it helps to ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You'll notice that it cultivates awareness of mind, awareness of the breath, and it helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation. It's kind of like exercising the mind a little bit before you actually start training it with meditation. So after the chanting, you're going to hear me coming in with some guidance where I'll be guiding you during the meditation. Just a period of time, maybe just 5 minutes or so, I'll be guiding you during the meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. All of you here and everyone joining us online. I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds here and there. You might hear a dog barking or a bird chirping, maybe a car going by or something like this. But all these sounds are impermanent. They are not permanent. So if your mind craves permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you're going to be frustrated or annoyed or agitated. But you can get to the point where you let that go and you realize that the world is impermanent, that you're not going to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So as you hear these different sounds, just keep your mind focused on the breath. You'll hear the guidance during the meditation. So we'll go through that period of time where we're just all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And there again, you guys are welcome to join in if you like. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 different positions that the Buddha taught because you can't be in just one position permanently. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would need these different positions at different times. So you're going to need to learn these if you would like to make your way to enlightenment, because your body can't be in the same position all the time. Oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, either on the floor, in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa. Maybe you're at home in a wheelchair or something like that. You can sit however you're comfortable. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of guidance just to help you understand different options. But there isn't just one way to sit. You can sit however you're comfortable. But here's a little bit of guidance to maybe help you out a bit. If you're sitting on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a little bit. And then you just lightly cross your legs, whereas if your legs are real tight, it would impede the circulation, and this would cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So if you like to do that and that feels comfortable, feel free to do that. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. So you might find this comfortable, but if not, again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. There's other options here. You could put your palms on your thighs or on your knees. Some people like to put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you with your hands and arms. And for anybody who's in a chair, on a sofa, or a wheelchair, or anything like this, there's lots of options for you too. You could put your feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm in a chair with my legs crossed, so there's many different options. And then the same thing with the hands and arms, just place them wherever you feel comfortable. If the upper body is erect, this will help to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So with your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll keep your mind more active during your meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will help you to be able to do that. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid and upright like that, then your mind could be overactive and uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. And not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it makes it easier for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on. And then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโพโตภาควาติ You guys are welcome to come up through, and we have plenty of space up here, so you guys don't have to stay in the hallway. You guys are welcome to come up. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind has moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาโอตังมหากวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสัคขะโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโหโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online. I'm not sure if there's still people in the hallway, but if there are, you're welcome to come on in and join us. We got plenty of space up here in the front. I think most of those people left actually, but if you guys see people coming in the back of the hallway, you guys can welcome them into the classroom if you like. So again, today is all about doing meditation with you guys and then just really opening up to any and all questions that you guys have about the teachings of the Buddha. But I'll give you guys a bit of guidance here and kind of teach you guys a few things, just kind of giving you a taste of the teachings of the Buddha, where on Saturdays and Sundays is where I do the bulk of the teaching. On Wednesdays, it's really just open up to all of you guys. And then we have courses and retreats and things like that that are available here as well. And you can join these here. You can join them online no matter where you're traveling in the world. You can learn the teachings of the Buddha to be able to make your way to this enlightened mental state. So what enlightenment is where the mind has eliminated all of its discontent feelings. Through training of the mind, an individual has uprooted pollutions that are in the mind. You might think right now that it's other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or any of these other discontent feelings, like maybe guilt or shame or fear, or stress or anxiety or lonely or bored or jealous or resentful. You might think that this is coming from other people, but in reality, it's coming from your own mind. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions in the mind that you can actually train your mind and you can uproot these out of the mind. And as you do, you'll see that the peace, the the calm, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy start shining through in the mind. And this is where the mind is actually enlightened. You'll see that the mind is focused, that there's concentration and clarity and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are blossoming because you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. Because if you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, you're going to notice that this is all just going to come back to you. You can see that in your relationships. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that the mind doesn't even experience a bad mood anymore. The causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind through training of the mind. So this meditation that we just did is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is one of the primary trainings that you use in order to train the mind to get to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. This is one of the biggest myths in the life story of the Buddha. People think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. And usually in these kind of environments, you'll see that people are really focusing on meditation a whole lot, right? But yes, you need meditation in order to get to enlightenment, but you also need a lot of other teachings too. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment through purely meditating. That's not the way to actually get to enlightenment. If you look at the teachings of the Buddha and the path that he lays out, about 6% of it involves meditation. There's a whole nother host of teachings and understanding that you need to gain in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So what you're doing in the path to enlightenment is, yes, you're training your mind. You're using this meditation, a breathing mindfulness meditation, but there's others as well. And you're gradually making your way to uprooting these pollutions out of the mind. And you're doing this through the cultivation of wisdom. You're not believing teachings. It's not about believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are about. It's about learning, investigating, and examining teachings in this life. Then you're reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your life using the tools and techniques that he taught to uproot these pollutions and experience more and more of the qualities of the enlightened mind. This happens through a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. The mind gradually moves to this enlightened mental state. So you're cultivating wisdom along this path. So you shouldn't believe anything that anybody says about the teachings of the Buddha, including me. Don't believe anything that I ever say, that I write in books, that anybody else says about the teachings of the Buddha. You won't get to enlightenment through belief, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. You don't know what's true or false. So you would like to come to the point where you have wisdom. The Buddha didn't teach you the way the world should be. And now if everybody follows these rules and commandments, that now the world will become a better place. He taught you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, this is where your mind, cultivating that wisdom, will start to experience life in a very different way. When you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle and you will have difficulties. If you ever watched the news, or mom or dad or brothers or sisters or other people in your life have done things and you're just like, I don't understand why they do that. I just don't understand. This is because you live in a world that you don't understand. But when you understand what's called the natural laws of existence, this is what the Buddha taught. When you understand the natural laws that the Buddha taught, then you can navigate the world more peacefully. When you lack wisdom of natural laws, you will struggle and you'll have difficulties. When we were growing up, we all struggled with the natural law of gravity because we didn't understand it. So we fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke open our knees, we broke our toys. We had all kinds of problems, and we cried and cried and cried, and we struggled because we didn't understand this natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. This natural law was affecting us, whether we were aware of it or not. But once we gained wisdom of it, slowly but surely, we started making wiser decisions, and we started experiencing different results. We started tying our shoes tighter. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk as we were walking. We started to get to the point where we can now climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. We don't fall down and hurt ourselves and have all the complications that we once had. And that's because we've seen the truth. We know that this natural law of gravity exists. We can see it. We see it with our own eyes, right? We have the wisdom of that natural law. Well, there's these other natural laws that your mind isn't aware of. If you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and any of these other discontent feelings, even the slightest annoyance, if you're experiencing those kinds of feelings, then your mind has certain wisdom about this world that you don't understand yet. And what the Buddha is teaching you is to be able to understand the world and to understand your own mind. Because essentially what the Buddha did is he took this human psychology and he boiled it down to a common understanding that any common person can understand. He took a very complex subject, which is human psychology, and he brought it down to a common language that everybody can understand. One of the things that he teaches you and that you can independently verify is that your mind is causing these feelings itself. So here's the way that he teaches this. He explains to you that the world is impermanent, that things are constantly changing in the world. And you can look around the world and you can see that that's the truth, that the weather is constantly changing, this human body is constantly changing, your relationships are constantly changing, you've got people coming and going in and out of your relationships all the time, your bank account is constantly changing, going up and down and up and down. But what happens with the unenlightened mind is it craves permanence. It wants things to be permanent. But when you live in an impermanent world, while your mind is craving permanence, you will struggle and you'll have difficulties. So if the mind gets what it wants, which is a craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, expectations, if the mind gets what it wants, then you get happy or excited. But then when you don't get what you want, your mind gets angry or frustrated or irritated. And the mind craves permanence. It wants things to be a certain way permanently. So if you could think back to when we were children, we might have went to mom and dad and we said, Mommy, Daddy, I want chocolate and ice cream. Give me chocolate and ice cream. Please, please, please give me chocolate and ice cream. And they said, okay, here you go. Here's some chocolate. Here's some ice cream. Have some chocolate. You're like, oh, you're the very best mommy and daddy ever. Oh, thank you so much, right? But then over time, we might have said, Mommy, Daddy, give me chocolate, give me ice cream. And they said, no. And we're very angry. You're the worst mommy and daddy ever. You don't give me chocolate and ice cream. This is not mom and dad that's causing that anger. What's causing that anger is the mind has craving. It has longing. It has yearning. It wants that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. And now when it's experiencing this impermanence, the mind doesn't understand that impermanence. The mind wants things to be permanent. So think back to a relationship that you might have had when you were with a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first got together, you were so happy, so excited. You guys were having great talks. You were going to the movies, maybe going to dinner. You're going to the park, walking around. Maybe you're having sexual contact. All kinds of great, wonderful experiences. And you had all these pleasant feelings because you were getting this affection and this experience of being with this other person. They were calling you and checking in on you and sending you text messages. And they might have put pictures of you and them on their Facebook page or on Instagram. And you're like, wow, look at this. But then over time, you had all these expectations of this person. You wanted them to be a certain way. And then they had expectations of you and they wanted you to be a certain way. And you couldn't fulfill that permanently. And they couldn't fulfill your expectations permanently. So now the relationship ended and it broke up. And now you might have been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. And now maybe even been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. So as long as the mind's craving permanence, it's going to be discontent when it's experiencing these situations. So if the mind gets what it wants, then it gets so happy. But that happiness is temporary. It's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition. So if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, wow, I'm so happy. But maybe you don't have one. Maybe you're feeling lonely or bored or some other feeling. Or maybe if it's sunny outside, you're so happy. But if it's raining, you're maybe sad. Or if your bank account balance is here, you're happy. But if it goes down here, you might be sad or frustrated. This is the mind forming its inner feelings on some condition. And because these things aren't permanent, your happiness isn't permanent. So the mind's conditional happiness, if it's based on some condition like the sun, well, when that sun goes away, and it will go away, then your mind's going to be angry or frustrated, irritated, or annoyed, or some other discontent feeling. Or if you get so happy when your bank account is here, then that means when it goes here, you'll be sad or frustrated. This is the mind causing its own discontent feelings. So it's not the love in that relationship that's causing the mind to be bored or lonely or missing that person or angry or frustrated. Oftentimes people are confused about that. You think it's because you care about this person and you love this person that's what's causing your painful feelings. You might think that love hurts, but it's not the love that's causing that. The love is this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. What's causing the pain is that the mind is holding on and craving permanence. When your mind let go, that's when you regained your peace and your joy. Because when you guys broke up, you might have been lonely or bored or frustrated or annoyed. But at some point, you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with somebody else, so be it. And you let him go. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move across to another part of the world and away from this area, okay, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace came back. So this meditation that we just did, the breathing mindfulness meditation, it's not to eliminate your thoughts. It's to train your mind to let go. Because the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do that. You'll hold on and hold on and hold on, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. Your mind isn't able to let go. So if 10, 20, 30, 50 times during the meditation you had to let go and come back to the breath, this is really, really good for your mind because it's training your mind to let go. It's also developing awareness of mind and concentration. We use things like generosity, where we're giving and sharing our time, effort, energy, and resources to also train the mind to let go. And this meditation also helps you as well. There's other teachings that you would need besides meditation and generosity. There's an entire path called the Eightfold Path that the Buddha shares that's going to help you to be able to understand these 8 individual factors, and you integrate them into your life. And as you do, it helps to train your mind to get to this peace and this joy that is enlightenment. I'm going to be teaching it this Sunday here at the temple, starting at 9 o'clock. I'm going to be teaching this core central teaching called the Eightfold Path. And if you're not here in Chiang Mai, you can attend by live stream through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. And if you can't attend live, then it's recorded and you can watch it at any time. And it's been recorded many times because I've taught this many times. It's a core central teaching of the Buddha. You would need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards to be able to get to enlightenment. So all these teachings that the Buddha is sharing with you, it's to help train your mind and uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. And as I mentioned to you, none of his teachings are based in belief. So you can take these situations that I'm starting to describe and you can reflect on them and you can see the truth for yourself. So that boyfriend or girlfriend, you can see that your mind was craving permanence. You might see that with grandma, grandpa, mom and dad, or brothers and sisters, where maybe somebody has died that's close to you, where when they were alive, you were happy, but then when they died, you might have struggled with that. You might have had grief or sorrow or despair. And it's not the love that's causing that. It's craving permanence. Grandma and grandpa aren't permanent. Because they were born, they have to die, right? Just like all of us, we're all going to die at some point. But if we crave permanence, then we'll be afraid to die. We'll have fear maybe of death. Or maybe if you've been to a wedding, maybe a brother or sister, a cousin or a friend, and when you saw them going off into the world with someone else, you might have grieved at this wedding, or other people around you might have been grieving. This is the mind holding on, wanting this person to be permanent. Or maybe you got dropped off at university or college, or maybe you can think back to when you were dropped off at school when you were a little kid. You might have cried or grieved because you were holding on to mom and dad. Maybe even mom and dad cried when they dropped you off at university or college because their mind was holding on and wanting you to be permanent. You can see this if you buy like a brand new car or some other item and you are really proud of this item. Maybe you have this car, you drive it to the store, you go inside, you come out and you see a scratch on your car. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be frustrated, and it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the mind to be frustrated or angry is it's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. And when it sees this scratch, it doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. We aspire to not scratch people's car when we walk through the parking lot. But the fact is that this car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to change. The upholstery is going to get ripped or torn or things like this. These things are going to happen. And if our mind craves for this car to look a certain way permanently, then we will really struggle during those situations. So you can take a recent situation that you've been angry. Don't use the examples I'm using. Use your own example. This is how you independently verify what I'm sharing with you is true. Think about a time when you've been angry or irritated or annoyed. Maybe it was this morning. Maybe it was yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. There was something that your mind wanted. And if you would have got it, you would have been so happy. But you didn't get what you wanted. So the mind experienced anger, or frustration, or agitation, or annoyance. You don't have to feel bad or guilty or shameful that your mind's doing this. Just look at it objectively and see that your mind is craving permanence. Every unenlightened mind experiences this. And everybody who's ever been born was unenlightened. The Buddha was unenlightened too when he was born, but he figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state, and then he shared the teachings of how to actually do that. So when your mind's angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, one of the things that the mind does with its lack of wisdom is it'll tend to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. You might have been in arguments where you were adamantly trying to convince people that they had to stop doing what they were doing, or else you were going to continue to get angry. Right? And that might be where you've been in the past, because a lot of us have. What the unenlightened mind does when it's experiencing these discontent feelings with its lack of wisdom, it will tend to push people away, or it'll push a situation away. So you might have been pushing people out of your life. This is very common, either pushing people or pushing a situation away. This is called aversion. And if you're pushing people away, it doesn't solve your problem, because you can see you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. It's just a matter of time. But the mind, with its lack of wisdom, thinks this is how to solve the problem, is push these people out of your life. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people with your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now it's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to convince them to do things your way, kind of fearing them into doing things your way. Or you might be putting your expectations on people, trying to control them or force them to do things your way. And as long as you're doing this, you can't eliminate your anger, and you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, and putting your expectations on people, these people are all going to leave out of your life because they're not interested in being around bitterness and harshness and hostility. So there's this better way of life that the Buddha taught. It's not a religion. It's not rules and commandments. It's this better way of life of how to train your mind, uproot the pollutions out of your mind. And then as you do so, now you'll experience more and more peace and more joy. And it just needs you to decide that you're done with the anger. You're done with the frustration. You're tired of feeling lonely and bored and feeling guilty and shameful and all these other feelings. And once you decide that you're done with these feelings, there's an escape for you. There's a way to get out of that. You can opt out of these feelings. And all the help for you to be able to do that is available at no cost. You don't need to pay anything. There's books that are available for you. There's videos and podcasts. There's audiobooks. There's personal guidance. There's classes, courses, retreats. You can attend here. You can attend online. Everything's available for you. All you need to do is decide you're done with all of that, and then decide to learn and grow and develop, essentially evolving to a better and better human being. Just like a snake or a lizard will evolve to a higher and higher species and a better species, a human being can do the same thing. We have the ability to evolve our mind. It just takes our dedication and our effort and our interest to be able to move to this better way of life. So if you guys are interested in learning about the teachings of the Buddha, there's help for you here. You can go to our website and get our books for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for our printing costs. You can get them on Amazon if you have access to that. You can get access to all the other resources, including personal guidance and classes and courses and retreats here. And since you might be traveling, you can attend through our live stream as well. So what I'm going to do is open up to any questions that you guys might have related to anything that I said or anything that's going on in your life or anything that you're seeing about the teachings of the Buddha. If you're meditating and you have questions about meditation, or if you're seeing things at the temples around Thailand here and you would like to ask questions about those, if you've been reading books or attending retreats and you're kind of curious about different things and you would like to ask questions to get help, you're more than welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. The way they ask questions is we have microphones in the white bowl in front of the camera. If you could just get a microphone, maybe they can be passed around the room, because all you need to do is press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on, and then talk into the microphone by putting the microphone up to your chin, because we have people joining us online, and if you talk here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you. So if you could use a microphone, that'd be wonderful. And then you can keep it with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share your microphone to the people around you. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll see that in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and I'll see that, and you can unmute your microphone and ask any questions that you like. So does anybody have any questions here that you guys would like to ask? Claire, you have a question?
It seems like everything you just said is the response to the question that I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay, sure.
You know, I just took that trip to do some volunteer work. And I just was enthusiastic about the mission of the project that I was volunteering for. I had no expectations going in. And I got there, and the people I was working with, I found to be not the things that you have described as being the basics for relationships: polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. So I went just to volunteer for this operation without expectation, I thought, and then people were unkind and very impolite to me multiple times. And so I present this, even though you just said all of that about this exact situation. Mm-hmm. Talk me through the practical application of the teachings on how to deal with this.
Sure. So the first thing, as you know, is not to have any expectations when you go into a situation, because you never know how anything is going to be. Whereas if you have an expectation and you want it to be a certain way, it's not going to meet your expectations 100%. So like whether it's going to do something like this, like a volunteer activity, or whether you're going on holiday, you're going on vacation, whether it's, anything, you're going to a business meeting or whatever, you would like to not have expectations. As soon as you expect something, this is the mind wanting. It's longing, it's yearning, it's wanting this thing. And if you get it, you'll be happy. And if you don't get it, you'll be sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. So you're not interested in expecting anything, and just realize the world is full of impermanence and things are going to be different at all situations. But then if you do go to a situation where you're like, hey, I would like to volunteer here. I think it was some like dance thing or art thing or something like that. Yeah. And you're like, these people should be very friendly, right? But it seems like there might have been an expectation in there that they would be a certain way, perhaps. I'm not sure. And then once you arrive, if you're noticing that there's this hostility and this bitterness and this harshness, that's where you need to understand that they're not being disrespectful to you. They're just being disrespectful. They're just making unwise choices about their moral conduct. And you don't need to allow that to affect you. You don't need to form your feelings based on how other people are functioning. You can just know that it's wise to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, and that's what you choose for your life. But not everybody else has that same wisdom, and they don't choose to function that way. So when you hear that sound of their voice saying whatever they're saying, just understand it's just a sound. It's just a sound. That's all it is. It's not being disrespectful to you. They're just choosing to be the way that they are based on their wisdom or lack thereof. They're going to function in whichever way that they function. And if we don't expect them to be a certain way, then we can maintain our contentedness and our joy. And that's where you come to a decision of what you would like to do, right? Like say you're spending your time there and maybe you're there for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Maybe you're planning to be there for 15 days. But then the first 3, 4, 5, 6 days, if you're seeing there's a lot of disrespect, a lot of impoliteness, then maybe you decide that you'd like to leave. It's not going to solve your discontentedness. If you're discontent, it's not going to solve your discontentedness. You got to get rid of the craving, the longing, yearning for people to be a certain way. But wisely, you can choose to associate with people who are doing things that are wholesome and that are wise. And in some situations, if someone's on the path to enlightenment and you're seeing that your mind's discontent being in an environment where people are being unwise and they're being disrespectful, you might actually choose to stay there and actually train your mind to get rid of this craving for others to be a certain way. That's one of the things that you do as you're kind of advanced in your training. But you also need to do what's called protecting your own contentedness. This is what the Buddha teaches you, is that you are responsible for your own contentedness and you need to protect that. So if you're in an environment where you're noticing the frustration arising and the discontentedness is arising, in a lot of cases, it's best to just step away. But you need to be able to have the wisdom to understand by you stepping away from that, it's not going to solve your discontentedness because you have that craving in there. But you've now noticed that craving, and now you can work with it more skillfully to let it go so that you don't have that expectation that people will function a certain way. But you can get to the point where people around you might be disrespectful, and your mind can be completely content and peaceful. You're not affected by it whatsoever, but you might still choose wisely, I'm going to just head out. You know, I've seen this place for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days now. I was planning to be here for 15 days, and I'm just going to choose to politely step away and move on. Even though you're maintaining your contentedness and you're not discontent, you might choose to move on politely and respectfully out of that environment because you're just not interested in being involved in all of this hostility and bitterness and harshness that's going on.
I hear you, and that rings so true. And then I just want to get really down to the brass tacks. Like, I'm there, somebody did something so startlingly rude to me that, you know, I unwisely took it on. It hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. So then the thing to do is to utilize that new muscle that I'm getting from the meditation of cutting it off and letting it go. Is that the practice?
Yes. What you would like to do is develop your mindfulness or awareness of mind so well that you notice the discontent feeling arising as a bodily sensation. You can catch it there and cut it off and let it go before it actually becomes frustration in the mind or agitation in the mind. If you can cut it off as a bodily sensation, you've saved your mind. It's like the mind's like, hey, I'm about to get frustrated. I'm about to get annoyed. You're like, nope, not going to let you do that. You know, that's just an impermanent thing. That guy's just saying that, or that girl's just saying that. They're not talking to me because there's no me here. They're just choosing to say that, and I don't need to take that on. It's almost like a force field around you. But you would notice it if your mindfulness is more developed and, you know, you're just getting started. I think 3 months, 6 months you've been studying with me. you need a lot of accumulation of meditation where you can notice the bodily sensations. It'll be like a tingling in the body, a tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is like an early warning system that you guys have that is alerting you, hey, you're about to get angry, you're about to get frustrated, you're about to get irritated, and you have the ability to take action at that point and cut it off and let it go. But if you don't have the wisdom to do that, or you don't have the ability to do it because maybe your mindfulness isn't developed as much, it's going to become a feeling. There is going to be frustration. But even in that situation, you can cut it off as a feeling. And sometimes one of the best things to do is just eliminate contact, walk away. Someone's just been rude and disrespectful. You haven't shared the situation, but I take your word for it that there was something pretty strong that was coming at you. You've experienced contact, something through the eyes, something through the ears. There was something came through the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself. And now you break contact, you distance yourself from it, you redirect the mind and take it somewhere else. So sometimes we think that when someone's being disrespectful and rude, you need to be disrespectful and rude right back. But you're not going to eliminate your difficulties and struggles in life that when someone's hateful and vindictive to you, that you're hateful and vindictive right back. Because that's just like they picked up a rubber ball and they're throwing around the rubber ball of hatred, and you picked it up and you throw it around, and then they pick it up and they throw it around and you pick it up and throw it around. Next thing you know, you got all these rubber balls bouncing around of anger and hatred in the room. When someone picks up the rubber ball of anger and they throw it around the room, or disrespect or impoliteness, they pick it up and throw it around the room, you just watch it roll to the corner and let it lose its energy. And the best way to do that is just walk away. And now you're protecting your contentedness. So a wise person only needs to walk with wisdom and a smile. You don't have anything to prove to this person. You don't even have to tell them, you just disrespected me. Now you're trying to teach someone, giving them unsolicited guidance. You can't teach the world how to be polite and respectful. It's up to each individual to decide for themselves that they would like to learn and become more polite, more respectful. All you need to do is protect your contentedness. Just smile and just walk away. Redirect the mind and go somewhere else. Would you like to share what actually happened, or is it too personal? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let it go. It's in the past. Yeah. Just let it go. It's in the past. Yeah, exactly. And this is each one of these situations that you experience, you bring your life practice up to the Eightfold Path, and you need to live your life that way for an extended period of time. And each one of these situations shows you where your mind is still challenged. And now you learn wisdom in each one of those situations, and now you'll know next time how to handle that better. And then each time, excuse me, that was breakfast. When you see that these situations work and you're seeing the wisdom of the Buddha working, you're like, wow, these teachings really work. Because before I would sit here and argue with this person and try to teach them and tell them how wrong they are. And then I would just get more angry, where now I'm just choosing to walk away and I maintain my peacefulness and my joy. And wow, this feels so much better. So you're learning this better way of life. And that's why you're not believing his teachings. You're actually learning them, reflecting on them to independently verify and practice. And now as you're practicing, you'll see the condition of your mind in your life improving gradually, slowly, but surely. Other questions? You have a question, sir? Yeah, if we can pass a mic back to you, that way you don't have to make your way up. We can get some mics going back there.
Hello. Hello, good morning. Thank you for the teachings. A question on the path to enlightenment in this tradition. I come from another tradition, which is Tibetan Gelugpa, and I know the Lamrim. How does it work, the path to enlightenment in this tradition?
Yeah, so the path to enlightenment is to learn, reflect, and practice, where you're training your mind. You're learning the Eightfold Path. There's an actual core central teaching here. Let me see if I can, here we go. There's this core central teaching. Let me just switch over so the people online can see my visual aids. Okay. So there's this core central teaching that you're learning, and you're using the words of the Buddha. You're learning right view all the way through right concentration. And this is helping you to eliminate your craving, your desire, your attachment. You're training your mind to actively eliminate this longing, yearning where you're chasing after things. And it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You're through this Eightfold Path and other teachings that integrate into it. You're uprooting the pollutions of the mind. It's called the 10 fetters. There's 10 individual fetters. And these 10 fetters, they're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would attach a fetter around your ankle to keep you trapped in a certain area. Like if you were a prisoner or a criminal, they would attach a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and now you would be in a field and they would keep you confined in that area. So the Buddha, when he was teaching, he had discovered through his own practice that there's these pollutions in the mind, and he talks about them as fetters or pollutions. They're taints. They're keeping you trapped in the unenlightened state. So by training your mind and uprooting those causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings, you'll experience more and more qualities of enlightenment. So while there's many different traditions of Buddhist teachings out there in the world, there's only one Buddha. So there's only one set of teachings. It's the original words of the Buddha. That's why this book series is titled The Words of the Buddha. And there's so many different people out there with different perspectives of what the teachings of the Buddha are. But unless you're studying with the true original words of the Buddha, you're not going to be able to understand and gain the wisdom of what you need to be able to uproot the causes and conditions that are producing the discontent feelings. You're not going to have the tools and the techniques that are available to you from the Buddha, directly from the Buddha. So the Pali Canon, which is the original source teachings of the Buddha, there's 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. We've consolidated it down into 13 books so that now you can actually learn and grow and develop, and you can see the truth for yourself that these teachings are working, to be able to gain more and more wisdom to actually train your mind, uproot these pollutions, and experience more and more peace and joy as you're making your way closer to enlightenment. So it works through you being your own individual practitioner. You're on your own journey to enlightenment. But a teacher is like a tour guide. You're going to need a teacher. You can't get to enlightenment by yourself. Only a Buddha, a true Buddha, which is very rare in the world, can get to enlightenment on their own without the help of any teachers or any guides. So a teacher is like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and grow and develop. But it's each individual practitioner who's choosing to do the work through learning, through the books, the videos, the podcasts, coming to classes, courses, retreats, getting personal guidance from a teacher. We're guiding you towards training your mind and developing your mind on this path so that then you can learn how to transform your mind and uproot these causes and conditions that are producing the discontent feelings. Galit, you have a question?
You mentioned in the past that practicing eliminating cravings with people close.
It's still on.
With people closest to you.
Just some impermanence.
With people closest to you is the hardest thing. Could you touch on that concept of detachment from people closest to you a little bit?
Sure. So this is one of the biggest misunderstandings in the teachings of the Buddha as well, is that people think that detachment means like avoiding people or going away from people or ending relationships or things like this, because they know that the Buddha left his family for 6 years, and they think that the Buddha left his family. They don't realize that he left for 6 years, trained his mind, but then he came back towards the area where he was. His wife ordained with him, his son ordained with him, his mom, who was his stepmother, ordained with him. So many people were ordaining with him from the royal family that his father came and begged and pleaded for him to stop ordaining people from the royal family, because he was attached to it, and he was afraid that it was going to fall apart, not realizing this royal family is impermanent, right? So when we talk about eliminating attachment in relationships, it's not that you leave your relationships. That's not how you practice non-attachment in your relationships, what you do is you get to a point where you're not trying to control people, you're not trying to force people, you're not putting your expectations on people and trying to control them to do things your way, because that's what attachment will do. You might notice that your parents are doing this, where they might be trying to control you and force you to do things their way. Or you might have other people around you, friends or family or bosses or neighbors. You might have different people that are trying to control you to do things their way, because they think that they have these certain cravings in their mind. They want things done a certain way. And if you do it their way, they get happy. And if you don't do it their way, they get sad and frustrated. So now the mind thinks the way to solve their unhappiness is to control you to do things their way. And if they form happiness based on what you're doing, then their happiness is temporary. It's only conditional happiness. As long as you do things their way, they'll be happy. But then as soon as you're not doing it their way, they'll be unhappy. And then the way they want you to do things is going to constantly be changing. So as long as you have expectations in your mind and you're wanting people to be a certain way, you might be trying to control them through your expectations. So you would like to get to a point where you understand that every individual being is their own being, and they're making decisions on their own, and you don't have any control into what they're choosing to do. Now with children, because I know you have children, you need to guide them and you need to cultivate wisdom, help them cultivate wisdom. And the Buddha teaches that you need to restrain them from evil. That if you see like your child's getting ready to cross the street and there's a massive truck coming, you're going to grab their hand and pull them back, right? And you probably even do that for an adult. Or if you see they're headed towards like drugs and alcohol and things like that, you need to restrain them from that evil and teach them how to do this. But otherwise, you don't have any responsibility to go out into the world and teach other people how to do things. This is what the ego will do. It's the ego in your mind, this arrogance, this pride. You'll think your way is the right way, and the way everyone else does things is the wrong way. And you'll think that you need to go out into the world and teach other people how to do things your way. And you think that you can only be happy if people do things your way. But the thing that your mind needs to understand is the world's never going to function according to what's in your own mind. This is what the mind usually wants, is it wants the world to function according to the way your mind thinks. And this is the ego. And now the mind tries to go out into the world and convince other people to do things your way, right? Where what you need to be able to get to is understand that there's impermanence. There's many different ways to do things. There's not just one right way. There's multiple ways that work. And your way is a way that works for you, but this other way that this other person's doing things, it works for them too. And it's not to say your way's right and their way is wrong. It's just a different way. It's just impermanence. So you would like to get to a point where you understand everybody is their own individual being and you love them as they are. You love them unconditionally. That you might not agree with their choices and decisions. The only person you'll ever agree with 100% is yourself. Mostly. You might disagree with yourself sometimes, right? But there's only one person in the world that you'll agree with their decisions is your own. Other people, even a life partner and people like this, you'll disagree with their decisions sometimes, but you can still love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions that they make. Whereas if you can only love someone who makes decisions the same way as you, you'll only be able to love yourself. And you might even find that challenging sometimes to love yourself. But if you understand that the choices and decisions that somebody makes versus the person themselves are two different things, you can separate these things. You could get to the point where literally somebody could murder your mom and you could still love the person. You disagree with their choices and decisions that they made, but loving someone means you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. You don't want anything from them. You don't expect anything from them. This is part of non-attachment with a person, is you don't want anything from them. You don't expect anything from them. You understand that their wellness is based on their decisions, not your decisions, and they're responsible for their wellness and you're responsible for your wellness. And now you go through life without putting expectations on them and controlling them. You can give people suggestions if they're open to it, right? You're not interested in giving unsolicited guidance, but if people are open to your ideas and your thoughts, then you can share that with them, but you can't have the expectation that they're going to do it your way. You're going to need to be comfortable with them maybe sitting down 30 minutes, an hour, asking you all kinds of questions about how to do a particular thing, and you might share that, and then they go off and do it completely different. You need to be comfortable with that. So the way to get to non-attachment with your relationships is you need to be comfortable with the coming and going of the relationship. Because sometimes, especially like a life partner or a boyfriend or girlfriend or a child, when you're together, you feel so happy. But then when you're away from each other, you can feel sad. You can feel sorrow. You can feel like you miss this person. And you might think that's the love. When you're missing somebody, you might think that's because you love them. That's not what that is. That feeling that you miss this person is because you're attached to them. You want them to be permanent in your life. And when they're with you, you're happy. And when they're away from you, you're sad or you're missing them. You feel uncomfortable when they're away from you. You feel miserable when they're away from you. This is because the mind's not content when somebody's away from you. It's craving permanence. It's wanting this person to be permanent. So like a husband, let's just use that. I think that might be who you're talking about, that you're working on getting rid of this attachment. You guys would like to get comfortable coming and going, where like you go on trips by yourself, he goes on trips by himself, for extended periods of time. And you don't necessarily need to call and message each other every day and check in on each other every day. You would like to get comfortable where they can do things in the house their way, and you feel comfortable with that, and you do things your way. There's going to be certain things you guys need to talk about and come to a certain understanding of things, but then you need to be comfortable with that changing too, because that's going to change over time. It's not like you decide something today and 20 years later, you guys are going to be doing it exactly the same way. It's going to be a little bit different. The way that you ultimately get to non-attachment in your relationships is breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. In this whole Eightfold Path, you're training your mind with that in all your relationships. But then there's something called reflection on death, because death is one of the biggest things that the mind experiences that it really struggles with, because that's like the biggest amount of impermanence that you can have in a relationship. Like if your mom died, or your dad died, or your brothers and sisters died, this is like a huge amount of impermanence that the mind's not used to. And that's why it's sudden, it's quick, and it usually experiences the most emotion during that period of time. But you can get to the point where people around you that are close to you die, and you don't have any sorrow or grief or sadness, because it's not the love that's causing that. It's the mind holding on and wanting this person to be permanent. So what we do is we do this thing called reflection on death, or contemplation of death, where instead of sitting back and waiting for one day death is going to sneak up on you and your husband maybe dies before you, or you die before your husband, instead of allowing that to happen, you confront death on your terms. You're like, I see you, death, over there in the corner. I know you're going to come visit me someday. So you know what? I'm going to come visit you. Right? So you do this activity where you sit quietly, you close your eyes, you envision that your husband has died, or even your children. You can do this. You like to do one person at a time. You envision in your mind that they have died. And you convince yourself over a 10, 15 minute period, you're not meditating, you're reflecting on death. It's like you're a fly on the wall, kind of observing what's happened. Maybe like a doctor has called you, or a police officer, or somebody like this has come visit your house and informed you that your husband has passed away. And now you absorb that, and you start thinking about that and processing that within your own mind. And now you're not aspiring for him to die. You're just kind of reflecting on it and confronting it. Then you go through the process. What are you going to do? You're not planning it. You're just kind of like, what am I going to do? I'm going to plan a funeral, a viewing, invite families. I got to call his brothers or sisters or his other family members. You walk through that, and you get to the 10, 15, 20 minutes of having done all of this. And then you start imagining living life after him as well, after he's passed away. And now you might grieve while you're doing this. And even afterwards, for several days, you might be sorrowful as you've done this. But eventually your mind's going to regain its composure, and you're going to live life. And then you're going to need to do it again. Maybe like once every 2 weeks or once every month. And then eventually you'll do this 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And each time when you're grieving, the grieving will be less and less significant. and your mind will recover more and more quickly. And then eventually you'll do it and there won't be any grief whatsoever. And you're like completely comfortable. Like, yeah, he's going to die. I understand. I'm going to die, or he's going to die. It's going to happen. This relationship is not permanent. We're going to die. And now you're just completely comfortable with it. And now it feels like all this bonus time. I did this with my grandmother and my mom in my mind when I was in my early 20s. And then all the rest of the time that I spent with them, it felt like bonus time because I had convinced the mind that they had passed away. It just felt like all this bonus time, and my relationship with them completely changed because I had convinced the mind that they had died, but yet they were still alive and I could spend all this time with them. And then when my mom actually died in 2017, there was no grief whatsoever because I'd already confronted it. I'd already experienced it. And this is why this particular technique, you usually don't do it until you have several months of breathing mindfulness meditation under your belt, because you're going to need that to regain your composure after you've done this contemplation of death. Whereas if like you're in a really challenging time in your life right now, it's not the right time to do it. You would like to build up your practice a bit more, get some things situated at home, all these kinds of things. And then when you're like, hey, I've got a couple of weeks here that if there's a little bit of grieving going on or a lot of grieving, I can deal with that. And I've got the tools and the techniques to do it. So now let me do this. And then maybe on a Monday morning or Wednesday afternoon or whatever, you do this contemplation of death. And you can even do it for yourself too. If you have fear of death, this will help you to eliminate your fear of death. So you can do like one person and do that until you go all the way through multiple times and your mind is fully let go. And then you can do other people as well. And even if you have pets, you can do this for pets, because I know some people have pets and you're really attached to your pet. And if your animal died, you would maybe grieve during that period of time. Where what some people do is they will go out and buy another animal, and now they'll just get attached to that one, and it doesn't actually solve the problem. So this reflection of death is like the ultimate way to eliminate attachment to people. And just always keep in mind that eliminating attachment doesn't mean you end the relationship. It just means you're not controlling this person. You're not putting expectations on this person. You're not basing your feelings on what is or isn't happening to this person. Right? If mom is healthy and everything's fine, you might be happy. But then if she's sick or she's in the hospital, you might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other feeling. That's because your mind's attached to mom, wanting mom to be permanently healthy, when that's just not possible because you live in an impermanent world. So by confronting these things and introducing some impermanence to the mind, it has to deal with it. And now after you deal with it, you come to terms with your husband being impermanent. And now you can just enjoy a wonderful life together because you've trained your mind in this way and you're not trying to control him or force him to do things. And you guys will live a much more harmonious life together. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, ma'am. By the way, we have bathrooms up here, this first door and the last door in the back. If anyone needs a restroom, you're more than welcome to help yourself. And then we have refreshments over here on this table. If you would like some water or snacks or things like that, feel free to help yourself.
And thank you for teaching today. I really appreciate it. And actually, I've got through really hard things and hard experiences. Yeah, I was really vulnerable and sad. So nowadays I found it hard to fall asleep. So I sometimes had a nightmare. So yeah, so I've got through a really hard time nowadays. So that's why I'm traveling right now in Chiang Mai. So,
looks like the battery's went
yeah,
out.
sorry.
Okay.
Would it be possible to give some advice how to get rid of my anxiety, something like that?
Okay. Yeah, so it's this whole path that you need in order to eliminate your anxiety. There's some small things that you can do to get started, but it's not going to be completely eliminated until you're fully practicing the entire path. The Buddhist teachings is not like a 2-minute thing that I can say to you and say, here's how you get rid of your anxiety, because that's why I have 13 books. I have all these classes and courses and retreats because it takes quite a while to train you and help you to learn what it takes to be able to get the mind to the point where it's eliminated discontentedness. But some things that you can get started with is training your mind with the meditation we did this morning. That's going to really help you. Practicing generosity, where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. This is going to help you as well. But to really make some real headway with it, you would like to learn the entire Eightfold Path and practice the whole Eightfold Path. That's what's going to make the big difference in your life. Because whatever your mind's having anxiety about, there's something that your mind's holding on to. And it's probably about something in the future, and you're fearing something that may or may not happen in the future. And you need to train your mind to let go and be in the present moment and just address whatever it is in the present moment. So the breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity will help you, but more directly, you would like to learn this whole path, which I'll be teaching on Sunday. It's also in the books and in the audio books and all this other stuff as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi.
Hello?
I want to ask, if there's no expectations, does it mean that anything or anyone around us is fine to us? If that is true, why we still keep changing our living environment, changing our boyfriend or girlfriend, and even life partners? So, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have expectations, people aren't going to be able to meet those permanently. And then you're just setting yourself up to experience discontentedness. You're just sabotaging your mind. What you would like to do is get to wise decision making, where you understand the wisdom of these natural laws and you're making wise choices. So since we're talking about choosing a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you know that killing is unwise, killing other beings is unwise, if you know that stealing is unwise, if you know that sexual misconduct, like having sex with multiple people and going outside your relationships, if you know this is unwise and it causes harm, if you know that lying, for example, is unwise, if you know taking substances that cause heedlessness, like drugs and intoxicants, this is unwise for you, it would also be unwise to have a partner who's doing these kinds of things. So when you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you would like to spend that time that you're dating to learn this person. That's what they actually call it here in Thailand. They don't call it dating. They call it a learning period. It's like you're learning each other. And you would like to learn this person. You would like to see, how do they talk about their mom and their dad, their brothers and sisters? What are their relationships like with those people? How do they talk about other people, right? How do they treat taxi drivers, food servers? Do they complain about their previous partners and just constantly complaining about how bad these people were? Because essentially what they're telling you and showing you is that they can't get along with people. That if the taxi driver, they're being bitter and rude and hostile to this person, maybe the food server, the same thing, maybe they're degrading their mom and dad or their brothers and sisters, maybe they're talking bad about their previous girlfriend or boyfriend. In that situation, you're the next person that they're going to have a difficulty getting along with. So that's an indication for you, where if you're just craving to be with this person, maybe they're handsome or beautiful, maybe they're rich or have a lot of financial success, or maybe they're intellectually attractive to you, and you're sitting there listening to them and they're complaining about all these other people, you might just in your mind be like, oh, those people are the problem. But if you understand that each individual is causing their own difficulties and their own struggles, when they're sitting there explaining to you all these problems in their life, they're essentially sharing with you, you're going to be the next problem that they have. So you would like to look at these things, not in a judgmental way where you're looking down on them, but just understand that when people share these things with you, don't allow your craving to be with them, your longing, yearning to be with them, to overcome the wisdom of what they're actually sharing with you. What they're actually sharing with you is that they're struggling in their relationships and they haven't figured out how to have healthier relationships yet. And you can see that in the way maybe they treat a taxi driver or a food server or something like that. And now you're going to be the next person a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, that they're going to be treating that same way. So you would like to make wise choices about who to include in your life without forming your feelings based on what they're choosing to do. Because the only person who's functioning perfectly is an enlightened being. And you're not going to find an enlightened being who's not in a relationship that wants to be in a relationship with you. An enlightened being will have already made those decisions. They will either already be in a relationship or they have chosen to be single. By the time someone gets to enlightenment, they've already made all those choices. They're not going to come out of a relationship, or if they're enlightened and they're single, they're not going to choose to have a relationship at that point. They're already enlightened. So whoever you choose as a partner, they're going to be imperfect. And what you would like to do is choose a partner who is wise about the decisions that they're making. They're not killing, stealing, having sexual misconduct. They're not lying. They're not taking intoxicants. But also you need someone who's not blaming you for the feelings that they're experiencing. Because if they keep blaming you for their feelings and they keep blaming you for the things that are going wrong in their life, you're not going to ever be able to create a wonderful life with this person. You would like this person to understand that they are a work in progress and they need to do some inner work, just like you. You need to do some inner work. They need to do some inner work. You guys are both imperfect beings, but if they're doing the work on their own and you're doing your work to be able to train your own mind, then together you guys can create a wonderful life with each other. But if they keep blaming you and they don't realize that it's their own mind that's causing these feelings, then you're just going to be the next person that they're complaining about. So you make these choices to include people in your life that are making wise decisions. Because if you include people who aren't making wise decisions, these decisions are going to impact you. So like if I chose a life partner who was using drugs and alcohol, who was lying, who was going around and having sex with lots of different people, who was stealing and stuff like this, those decisions that they're making is now affecting me because I've chose to be in a relationship with this person. That's the decision that I made that is affecting me, is being in this relationship with this person. But now this person making all those unwise decisions, my experience is that I'm going to now experience impact from their decisions. The way that I would suggest you think about a life partner is think about if you had a business or you had a company and you had a position. Say you're the owner of this company and you're trying to hire a CEO of your company. Whoever you hire for your company as a CEO, this company is going to live and breathe or die based on your choice of who your CEO is in your company. The leader of the company is going to make it either wildly successful or it's going to collapse and fall apart based on who you pick as a leader. Well, you've got this really important position in your life, which is your life partner. And if you're choosing to have a life partner, not everybody will, but if you choose to have a life partner, this is a very important decision. And what decision you make is going to determine what you experience for a significant portion of your life if you choose to be with that person. So you'd like to use this learning period of the dating to figure out, is this person making wise decisions? Are they understanding that they are causing their own discontent feelings? Are they understanding that they are a work in progress and they need to do some inner work on their own mind? Or are they blaming me for all the things that they're experiencing? And then if you have somebody like this, which isn't very common, right? So you're going to need to look for somebody like that. But now you're making decisions wisely that, I can build a life with this person because they're doing inner work. They're not blaming other people. Yes, they're not perfect, and neither are you. But now you need to be able to figure out how to make a life together. But both of you doing your own individual work and taking responsibility for the feelings that you're experiencing rather than blaming each other for those things. Mm-hmm. Any other questions you guys have? Oh, Josh has one. Yeah.
Can you explain what Sangha is and its importance in relation to the teachings?
Sure. So there's a Pali word called Sangha, which means community. And the Buddha teaches that you need to have these three things in order to get to enlightenment. You need to have confidence in the Buddha, access to his teachings, and you need to be part of a community. If you just had one or two of these things, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. So oftentimes when people first come to the path to enlightenment, they don't have confidence in the Buddha because they haven't studied his teachings yet. They don't know what they are, so they don't really have confidence. But when you get access to his teachings and you learn them, not believing them, but you learn them, you examine them and investigate them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them, and you see the condition of your mind and your life improving, you gain more and more confidence in the Buddha. So it's that confidence that starts arising because you have access to the true teachings. That's why you need the true teachings. And then you need to be part of a community, because what a community is going to do for you is that's where you're going to get access to a teacher, to resources that are going to help you. But then you're also going to learn from other people too, because a teacher is going to be teaching you. But if a teacher is teaching the true teachings, you're going to see a lot of wholesomeness in the community. You're going to see people are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You're going to see this, this warmth, this love, this kindness, this compassion in the community. You're going to see generosity in the community. You're going to see all these wholesome qualities, so many wholesome qualities that you'll be learning from that too. Because you'll say, wow, I really like how that young lady asked that question. That was really polite and really respectful. I think I'll do that too. I don't usually ask questions that way, so maybe I'll start asking questions that way. So you learn from other members of the community just through being around people who are consciously working to improve the condition of their mind and their life. You'll pick things up from them. Whereas if you were just off in a cave by yourself somewhere, you won't get to enlightenment because you're not having access to a community where you can learn. Because as human beings, we tend to conform to what's going on around us. This is why, like, if you grew up in a hostile and bitter and harsh environment at home, you might have had a certain amount of harshness and bitterness and resentfulness growing up as a child, because maybe that's what you were exposed to as a child. So your mind conformed to that with your parents and other older people around you. You started conforming to that and started functioning in that way. But when you're around people who are loving and kind and warm and gentle and friendly and respectful, your mind will tend to lean in that direction too. So that's where the community comes in, is that you've got a whole bunch of people who are cultivating their mind, moving closer and closer to wholesome things, walking towards enlightenment. And now you can gain that wisdom through, yes, the teacher and the books and all those kinds of things, but also from the members of the community too. You can see those qualities and be like, oh wow, I really like how they just practice that. I think I'm going to do some of that too. And it might just be something quietly that you're doing in your own mind. You can also experience having a community where you guys can discuss the teachings. This is something that the Buddha taught, is like, students are learning, maybe you guys go have lunch together and you discuss the teachings, and that brings the teachings up in your mind to help them permeate, and you're able to practice them more readily that way by actually discussing the teachings. So a community is an essential part of getting to enlightenment, and you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without being part of a community. But also, you ultimately need to have confidence in the Buddha and access to his teachings too. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Any other questions you guys have? I'm going to look here online and see if we have any questions online. Any questions? Okay, it looks like we have. Okay, I see some comments online, but I don't see any questions, so I'm not going to address those. Okay, so what I'll do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for coming to Wat Tung. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Anytime you'd like to learn more, you're more than welcome to join us here at the temple or online. The way that we've set up is no matter where you are in the world, you can learn and practice and grow and develop. All these books are available online. The classes, courses, retreats are all available online. The audio books, even personal guidance. If you would like to sit and talk with me here in Chiang Mai, you can, but you can also schedule online, and you can meet with me privately online through Zoom. Now with technology, we can really help people that have all kinds of different lifestyles. You don't have to be just being in one spot in order to learn the teachings. Like during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you didn't live close to the Buddha, you wouldn't have learned, right? He didn't have the internet and live stream and all these kinds of things that we have now. So we can really share the teachings far and wide. So if you would like help, there's help here for you, and you can come talk to me and I'll help get you plugged into the teachings. Our website is a central hub. That's the best place to get plugged in, but there's other resources that you might be looking for as well. So feel free to let me know. I'll be pleased to help you. This Saturday, we're going to be doing our Pali Canon and English study group. On Sunday, we're going to be doing our group learning program. We're going to be teaching the Eightfold Path. And then next week on Wednesday, we'll be doing the same thing as today. And 2 weeks from now, we're going to be having a grand opening of our classroom downstairs. They're doing some construction, and they've been refurbishing now for several weeks. So in 2 weeks from now, exactly 2 weeks from today, we're going to have a grand reopening celebration, which you and anyone else are welcome to come. We're going to have a ribbon cutting celebration and all kinds of things. So feel free to come on Wednesday at 9 a.m. It's actually the 1st of January, the new year. We're going to be starting off in our new classroom. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for any support that you help us with. And perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.